What's your reaction to Tom Brady's retirement announcement?
Well, I'm not shocked. The initial shock kind of wore off on Saturday. I was on air when the Schefter report came out.
Damn you, Shefty.
And, so the initial wow wave has already passed through. And, we were kind of a little bit on ice to get the official announcement from him, which we've now gotten. So now we can all kind of settle into this reality that we are no longer going to be watching Tom Brady play NFL football. I'm a little sad, I'm not going to lie. I was listening to My Way, Frank Sinatra, on the way home from the show on Saturday, reminiscing. I listened to it a little bit this morning, just, thinking of the memories and all of the emotions that we have attached to the Tom Brady era of the NFL, which is 22 years, is literally an era in different phases of the game. And so my initial reaction is to just take a moment to reflect, really, on not only what it is that Tom Brady represents to the NFL and represents to sports, represents to business, represents to our business, but also what is the NFL going to look like moving forward. And, I just feel actually a lot of gratitude. I feel grateful that I had the opportunity to not only watch, suffer under and enjoy the greatest player in NFL history, and now it's over.
Yeah, look, beyond the obvious greatness that I think everyone's going to echo in chorus about Tom Brady on and off the field, let me just start with a story. Last night, put my son to bed as I do every single night. Sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's an hour long. Last night was closer to an hour long because my son asked me the question, is Tom Brady retiring? And I was like, where did you hear that from? He's like, well, everyone's telling him he should retire. I said, where'd you hear that from? He said, I watched the game this weekend and they were saying he's retiring. I don't think he's going to retire. I think he's unretiring. And I was like, oh, big word for you, young man. That school is paying off because I certainly pay for that school. So we're sitting there looking at my phone, and I selfishly pull out a picture and a video of myself on the field with Tom Brady. Because if Tom Brady's that great, I want my son to think that I at least touch greatness, right? So I'm on the field chasing Tom Brady out. As I say on cue, this is me and MJ last night. Now it's Joy and Greg. And you're going to see Marcellus Wiley there, flanked by Rodney Harrison, who is out of position, being an independent contractor. No wonder our defense never did anything. And this is Tom Brady's first NFL passing touchdowns. If you noticed on this play, two things stand out to me. One, amazing throw by Tom Brady. Should have known you're going to be the GOAT one day. That is a great throw against my defense. But the second thing was, did I see Marcellus Wiley getting double-teamed and fan protection? Boy, Greg, they had to do a lot to get me off the field. I am the reason the GOAT got started. That's what I want to say selfishly right now. No, in all seriousness, man, you talk about Tom Brady climbing to the top of the mountain and clearly sitting on top. And sitting on top alone. That's what's amazing about Tom Brady. You can say what you want about him in terms of, wow, he went to a great situation in New England. He's with Bill Belichick. Whatever you want to say about Tom Brady, he literally put the work in that got him to that apex. And he sat alone. And now this is not a guy who the game has passed by. He's literally taking a lateral step and walking off into the sunset. Visualize that. That's how high up Tom Brady is in terms of respect and admiration I have for him as a former opponent. And now him playing so long and so well all the way to the end, all 4 quarters of his entire career. Tremendous, utmost respect.
Yeah, I echo the same thing of both of you. But for me, it's a little different. It started a little sooner, a little earlier. As a Michigander myself, and Tom Brady starting his career, his collegiate career at the University of Michigan and winning a national championship, and just as a kid enjoying and embracing that and seeing that fire in him immediately transfer into his NFL career. You just learn to admire guys like that, guys who never said anything other than I can, and showed it more than they said it. And so for me, as a competitor, I'm a little I wouldn't say hurt. I'm a little stung a little bit. It stings because you want to see that type of competitor continue to play. It reminds me of when I saw Michael Jordan retire, and And it's like even my own teammate Brett Favre, it was like kind of I was in awe. I was numb because the game had become them. They had become so great and such a huge asset to the game. It was like, how is this going to continue on without them? And that's what Tom Brady brings when we talk about and we reflect on his competitive nature. But then as a dad, as a parent, as a husband, understanding what that feeling is like when you go home every offseason or every night, like you said, Marcellus, when you put your kids to bed or when you read those stories or when you're doing that homework, you enjoy that even more and you want to embrace that moment even more and continuously without interruption. And I think that's where Tom Brady is. So that part of me is excited because I know what that feels like to be able to exhale and finally commit all of who you are, just like you did when you were playing in your career and you gave it to your best to all of your teammates, all of your coaches, all of the fans. Now you get to really be all of that to your family. And so for that, I'm excited for him. I'm definitely going to miss him. It's not going to hit me until we start to watch football again next year. And there is no sign of Tom Brady in any uniform and he's not strapped up and buckled up. And so it won't hit me until then, but great career, unbelievable human being. And I wish him the best.
Yeah, just listening to you talk about brings me back to when my brother retired, and both of you guys have obviously gone through this transition as well, because none of us have really taken the time, I think, at least I'll speak for myself, speak for yourself.
Hey.
What life is going to look like for Tom Brady after the NFL, because I've never spent any time as a professional in this business speculating about when he's going to retire. So, we've talked about Aaron Rodgers possibly retiring, what's Drew Brees going to do. We already gave Sean Payton a television job that he claimed he wasn't even offered yet. So for some guys, we can see what their next chapter is going to be. But Tom Brady is such a businessman. He's such a professional at the highest level, but also in some weird essence of ways, he feels like one of the guys, maybe because so many of the people that have played with him and played against him have such an admiration and relationships with him that even though he's this otherworldly, unattainable level of success, he doesn't seem like out of touch. None of us are eating avocado ice cream every day. Like, we're not dedicating ourselves to anything that we do at that level.
Right.
But he somehow still feels relatable. So yeah. I just never imagined what he would do after football. And to your point, Greg, I don't think it's actually going to hit us until we see NFL football next season and Tom Brady is not there. And we're talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers without Tom Brady there. And, obviously we've already moved on to what the Patriots look like without Tom Brady, but now without having to compare them to what Tom Brady is doing in the NFL. So this next chapter for him is so interesting to me. Like, what's he going to do? Is he going to kick it in Costa Rica for 6 months?
Why not?
Is he going to get into, some other type of businesses? And, whatever he's going to do, I'm sure he's going to be wildly successful at it. But being able to spend time with his family, which he obviously is very public about having, great relationships with his kids and his wife who have supported him. And as you guys know, the family support that you need to play in the NFL at all is very crucial. To do anything at a high level is very crucial. But to do it at the way that Tom Brady does it, that we saw in that Tom versus Time, where he's just in the room watching film all day and everything is about preparation and with Alex Guerrero, and he's doing rehab and his training every single day, and his full dedication to be the greatest to ever do it, he now gets to put it to his family, which is exciting for him.
Yeah, let me bring this home for me as well and say something that's cliche but profound as well. It's cliche to say it's the end of an era, right? Oh, Tom Brady retires, end of an era. But let me personalize that, because I was drafted before Tom Brady, and Tom Brady played after me. And let me tell you about this superhero that's from the neighborhood, that's from the block in Tom Brady. As you said, Joy, he's so relatable. At the same time, you also saw him climb from where you were and him go to the apex in terms of his resume and his career in the NFL. So I'm looking at Tom Brady, and it's one thing, Greg, as you noticed, and it's one thing, Joy, as you saw with your brother Jason, when we retire. Now, we know when we retire, we can feel the pains, we can feel the ups, the downs, the process, what we're going to miss, what we look forward to. We know what that feels like, and we make a decision for ourselves ultimately. But it's another thing when you witness someone who you played against. And to me, he's the last of the Mohicans, outside of Mercedes Lewis, the only other dude I know that I played against that's still out there playing. But Tom Brady is almost symbolizing to me when I moved and got drafted to the NFL, I moved off the block. I moved from Slauson and Edgemore. I moved from the neighborhood. And that was sad. Even though I was excited about what the next chapter looked like, hey, I got a bigger house, I got to live in this nice house, I felt sad I left my old stomping grounds, right? But let me tell you what's sadder. When you go back to your old stomping grounds and nobody you knew, nobody that you used to grow up with is there anymore. And that's what it feels like right now. I'm looking at the NFL now like, who are these dudes that gentrified by NFL, right? All these new players, all these new money, all these new faces. And it's a complete turnover now because there's no one that you used to ride with, no one you used to play against that's still out there. Now, maybe Greg is in a different position than me, but drafted in 1997, there's no more Mohicans left. I think Tom was the last of them.
Yeah, I'm definitely in a different position than you. I wasn't drafted in 97. I was drafted almost 10 years after you in 06. So
Look the same.
let's let the world know that. But I think what's super cool, and Joy, you mentioned it, and I think it goes, it's something that people don't really understand the importance of, and that is relatability. When you can find a way to relate with someone, you draw them. And I think that's what Tom Brady did, not just to competitors, not just to teammates, but to dads, to entrepreneurs, to businessmen, to just normal human beings that are behind all odds or the 8-ball and just fight and claw and never give up and never quit and find a way to become relentless every single day. You draw from those people and you admire them no matter what. Think about the amount of success that Tom Brady has had. People don't really hate Tom Brady. They just hate the idea that he always beat whoever they were rooting for. But you appreciate how he did it. And so for me, when I look at his career and I see it coming to a close, yes, does it sting? Do you want to see guys like that continue to play forever? You do, but when you read how he messaged in his letter saying, I'm unwilling to give the level of commitment that is required to compete, it almost humbles me, because for 22 years, knowing the amount of dedication that it takes for a player like Tom Brady to commit. And I played for 10 years, and Marcellus, maybe your story is a little different.
Older.
But for 9 of those years, I felt like, yeah, I gave it everything I had. But that last year in Miami, I'm going to be honest, I was kind of going through the motions. And so to watch him every single year have expectations, not of everybody else, but of himself, to be the best, to provide the same thing, if not better, to this team or to this group of guys that may look different every single year from year in and year out, and do it at the highest of levels, it's to be applauded, it's to be commended. I give him his flowers right now while he can hear and see them. Job well done, Tom.
Man, since we're on the couch right now, let me be 100 up here. Those last 2 years in Jacksonville were a paid vacation because they paid me to give them a spark, but I used to be the one that used to have that spark. But I was looking for them to give me that same spark to fill that void. And Tom Brady just skipped past that process in so many other ways outside of his just tremendous greatness. Let me say this in conclusion. I should have known that Tom Brady's retiring before anybody else. Maybe it's 2 months ago, and I get this care package at the home, and it says TB12 on it. Now, I ain't stupid. I know what TB12 is, but I am feeling a little strange. Like, Tom Brady sent me something? Look, Tom Brady and we text a lot. Actually, I text him a lot, and he doesn't respond. Actually, I ain't even got his number. But I know Tom Brady, right? So the point is, when this hit me, I'm like, what the hell is this? And it was just nothing. His book, workout regimen, and protein shakes, and kale falling everywhere, and just a mask and all this. And The universe whispers before it yells. And I should have taken that note right then, like Tom Brady and his company, the machinery, the brand, TB12, is now reaching out to all those, whether they were friends or foes, in terms of warning us that this moment was going to come. I ain't going to lie, I'm sad. I was sad when I retired, but it seems like I'm more sad that Tom Brady's retiring, because truly, it's the end of a great era.